Hello, welcome to another FinApp session. In this video, we are going to be showcasing the research methodologies and the research offerings that we're making to our partners in FinApp. All know that FinApp is a software that we're making it available, but the holding company of FinApp, which is Pulse Lab Research and Technology Solution, it originated as a research house, and we've actually been doing consultancy and research services for very large HNI advisors, which are called as multifamily offices. We are extending that capability in terms of fund selections and asset allocation models and all of that within the FinApp ecosystem. So, research for us is actually broadly categorized into two modes at a higher level. One is the funds that we recommend, and the second is the portfolios that we make it available for goal based and risk based kind of models. We will start with the funds, with the recommended funds, which is what you sort of see here under the tracking and whitelisting section. But before we get on to the recommended funds, let me also just take a step back and give you a bigger picture. You all might have, not might be, will be very comfortable, very familiar with rankings and ratings of mutual funds, right? I mean, let's say starting with Value Research, Morningstar, Money Control. Everybody has got their own ranking and rating system. But if you actually ask a question yourself, that are you aware of how these people have actually come out with a rating mechanism, or how on what basis have they, let's say, assigned a 5-star rating to a particular XYZ fund? The answer is no, or in other words, the research process is opaque. To sort of take away that particular problem statement, we have open sourced a research methodology or a ranking mechanism which is made available to you in FinApp across all the equity funds, wherein you will be known, or you will actually be aware of what is the methodology which is applied in terms of ranking and rating of fund. And that particular information is also going to be available for the funds across the equity spectrum. So how is it making a difference to you that the next day, as in tomorrow, when you sort of recommend a particular fund, and if they're actually asking on what basis has this recommendation come, and in case if you're relying on a fund from a FinApp ranking perspective, that is something that you will actually be able to even publicize, you will actually be able to showcase, especially to an HNI investor. This is the basis on which we have actually done our research, and this is the basis on which we have arrived at a particular rank or a rating. So, or in other words, something which is being so-called like a black box, for these kind of rating agencies, we have open sourced it, and we're making it available to every partner in FinApp. Okay. So coming back to the fund recommendations, even though rankings are available for all the funds, I mean across all the equity funds, the recommendations that we are making are actually confined to the main category, starting from large cap to small cap. Okay. So now you're seeing the recommendation for all the equity funds, as in for all the main categories. If I click on large cap, now you can see that these are the two funds that we're actually recommending from the large cap segments. Okay. Now, giving you a larger picture, we have something called as an emerging bet, and we have something called as a stable bet. Okay. So I'll talk about this as well, and we are actually doing this particular thing on a quarterly basis. We review all our recommended funds on a quarterly basis, and we make the necessary changes between the emerging bets and stable bets. Okay. Before we get on to the emerging bet and stable bets, let me take you to the research methodology, which is what we publish. Something called as a ranking process, primarily from a recommendation point of view, and this is the process based on which we rank every fund. Uh, at the next level, which is from a recommendation point of view, alongside the ranking, we are also using two other processes called as screener as well as return. Now, I'm going to be taking you through all the three frameworks, that is ranking process, screener process, and return process, and how do we arrive at the final recommendations for the categories starting from large cap to small cap. I'm going to be telling you that, and then we will come back to the fund ranking. So the ranking process, as you can see, these are the different parameters starting from performance, risk parameter, fund manager, AMC, as well as additional. Again, under the performance metrics under the performance metrics, we have subdivided the performance into CAGR return, benchmark return, absolute return, and rolling return, and we've given a 20% weightage to that. I hope you can sort of see my screen. 20% weightage to that. And similarly for 25% for the risk parameters, and likewise we've sort of given a weightage. So we apply this data to every fund at a category level, and then we arrive at a ranking at a category level. Let's say large cap funds, let's say 33 funds out of it, we sort of rank the fund from 1 to 33 based on the weightages that we provided here. So, and we've been very, very transparent enough in terms of also telling that what are the different pros, that is the positive, and what are the cons, which are the negative for the different, for this particular ranking process. And similarly, we also have two other process called a screener as well as return. Now, what we do here is that we pick up the top five funds from each of the categories. I mean, from each of the frameworks, that is ranking, return, and screener. The top five funds which comes in as part of these three different frameworks, and any fund that comes in as a common fund between these three frameworks makes a way into the recommendation. Okay, so think of it like this: the three frameworks are extremely unique and distinct, and we run this at a category level, and only the top five funds are selected from all the three categories, sorry, all the three frameworks, and only the common funds between the three frameworks will actually be picked up here as part of the recommendation, which means that it is actually looked at from multiple dimension lenses, and only then it gets into a way from a recommendation point of view. Now, the first time it comes into the radar, the very first time that it comes into the top five, this thing between the three frameworks, it makes a way to the emerging bets. And if it is actually staying consistently over the next quarter, is when it comes to the stable bets. So, long story short, it's an extremely robust of processes that we've deployed, which is reviewed on a continuous basis, like on a quarterly basis, and then is how we started making it available over here. So it essentially means that, at least because most of our positions, most of our recommendations, or I would say the suggestions that we give to our investors to be a part of the portfolio, is predominantly going to be coming from this segment, large cap to small cap, which is the diversified segment, which I would say covers maybe about 70 to 80% of the equity component. And that is something that we've already covered as part of the research, and which is essentially like a very time tested methodology. And also we've been, open enough in terms of publicizing that as well, so that there's no black box. You're actually able to sort of even come back to us, question us in terms of why this particular methodology, or why a particular weightage, or why weightage to a particular parameter, to what percentage, etc., etc. All of that is going to be made available here. Okay, so if you actually take a step back, FinApp is not just offering you a software with data for you to decide, but it is also offering you the recommendations, which is run by a rock solid research team from the Pulse Lab Research and Technology Solutions Private Limited. Alongside this particular thing, I was also talking about ranking of the funds, which is available under fund selection, and you can come to this particular thing called as FinApp rank, and you can actually see it at an asset class level and also at a fund category level. So for example, if I choose a flexi cap, I'm going to be seeing the ranking that we are actually making for each of the flexi cap funds, and which is coming from these parameters based on fund house, based on performance, based on risk, fund manager, fund house, and additional parameters. That's the ranking process that we've deployed here, and you will actually be able to see at the category level each funds that you will actually be able to see the rank. This is available for all the equity fund, but while the recommendations are available mainly for the not mainly, it is actually for the funds which are starting from large cap to small cap, and this is where the fund recommendation comes into picture, which is in under FinApp tracking and whitelisting. You can also click on the research methodology and see this particular page over here. So, if you have any questions in terms of how to leverage the research recommendations that FinApp team has to offer, the Pulse Labs team has to offer, do get in touch with your relationship manager. We will see you on another video. Thank you so much for watching.